Hello and welcome back to Self-Improvement Australia. Joined with me, as usual, is James Dent. James, how are you doing on this fine day?
Ethan, I am having a characteristically amazing day. How is your day going, and what is your thought of the day, sir?
Oh, well, I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. And my thought of the day is put Dijon mustard on your steaks instead of salt and pepper, and you'll get a better crust. That is my thought of the day. Example. James, what is your thought of the day?
My thought of the day, Ethan, is a few episodes ago we made it into the 1%, and we were like, oh, there's no financial reward for being in the 1%. Well, that's all about to change, because we finally have a sponsor for the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to play the air horn one more time because I don't think you acknowledged we have a sponsor for the podcast. Our sponsor for today's podcast is none other than Self-Improvement Australia. And you're thinking to yourself, aren't they Self-Improvement Australia? And we are. But this podcast is a part of our sponsor, which is the Self-Improvement Australia Skool group. Now, we're going to talk more about that later, but what you need to know for right now is that for about $1 a day, you get all of the access to Q&As, me, Ethan, in-person meetups, courses, the community, the whole network, fitness, finances, learning about fulfillment, families, friends, relationships, and when we hit 50 people, Ethan has promised there's going to be... Sorry, I need the sound effects. Ethan has promised there's going to be a giveaway. Sound effects. He's promised there's going to be a sales course. I'm going to promise that I will do a live Q&A, not when we hit 50, 30, 20 subscribers. I'm going to do a live Q&A answering any and all of your questions. So get in there now, and then we'll do the Q&A at 20 people. Now, Ethan and I are already in there, so it turns out you are 1/18th of the way from not only hanging out with us, but getting this epic Q&A. And once you get that Q&A and you're like, whoa, that was worth like a ridiculous amount of money. My life has improved now. And then you tell all of your friends, then you unlock the sales course. This is exciting news.
But
for
that's
right
not
now,
what we're here to talk about today, James. No.
you're right.
We're going back. We're going back to where the roots of this podcast started and continuing on with our journey of the 48 Laws of Power.
48 Laws of Power.
And today we will be talking about Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. And what Robert Greene writes about is this. To maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. The more you are relied on, the more freedom you have. Make people depend on you for their happiness and prosperity, and you have nothing to fear. Never teach them enough so that they can do without you. James, this law, it's not my favorite. I will admit. It's not my favorite. Mainly because I'm not someone that's wanting an obscene amount of power myself. I can definitely see the value of this law from someone that would want a lot of power. But for me personally, I'm not someone who is wanting to keep people dependent on me. That's just my kind of initial thought when I first read this chapter. What about yourself?
Well, I'm about to change your mindset. So, the way that I think about this, and I know that it's not written. Robert Greene, as we've discussed before, he's really, really effective at making a point. But sometimes he will make that point and popularize it at the expense of, I guess, talking about what he is really trying to say and mean. So he says, like, oh, the more that someone needs you, the more security and freedom that you have. Like, you need to create this monopolistic, capitalistic empire that everyone depends on you so you can maximize the amount of power you have. But if you take it away from that sort of advertising context, I think that what you end up with is something to the effect of take on as much responsibility as you can for other people. And, here's an example, right? You work at a company. You make that company $10 million out of its $11 million a year. And you charge them an amount of money for you to do so, right? Basically, what Robert Greene is trying to say is you've taken on so much responsibility for that small paycheck that you can be assured that the company won't fire you. And the reason you can be assured is because you've taken on so much personal responsibility. You've done so much to ensure not only your job at the company, but also the existence of the company into the future, right? You've done so much good that almost in a karmic way, those people are going to treat you well because you've treated them so far and above beyond. And the other half of this, I think, is in the area of Jocko Willink's, like, discipline equals freedom. So the idea for Jocko is, look, the more responsibility you take on, the more freedom you actually have. Example, the way that you become financially free is you become disciplined with your finances. The way that you have the freedom to, say, have a cheat day is you work out every other day of the week, right? And so I think both of them are just advocating for take on as much responsibility as you could humanly handle, and you will actually end up with freedom and security. And if you take on more responsibility than the people above you, then they're going to depend on you. And that's not your fault for taking on too much responsibility. I interpret this, and I know it's not the intent that he had, but I actually interpret this as if you take on more responsibility than people above you, they end up becoming below you. And I really like that theory because it turns this really negative law, right? Like, the top-down interpretation is like, oh, this law is about trying to steal from people, create a monopoly, make people dependent on you, evil capitalists. But I think once you turn it into that social responsibility aspect, personal responsibility aspect, it becomes something that's within your control. And you're like, well, I just need to do more, be more, have more, whatever. So that, I can be the best person. And then by being the best person, other people will need to have me around. So I think it's about raising your own value rather than sort of like trying to manipulate others to only contrive value from you. You know what I mean?
No,
But
I like that. I like that. It was my way of interpreting it that made it so negative. But I completely agree with everything you've just said. Responsibility, being in control of your own life, being so good at what you do that other people just are below you. Not because you're trying to do that, but just because you are just being better. You're doing better. And I like that. I like that a lot. Bless you, by the way.
Thank you. I muted the mic so you wouldn't notice, but foiled again. All right. So that raises the question from me, which is, what are your overarching thoughts on this law?
Well, now that you have effectively changed my mind to make this more of a self-improvement point of view than
Everything is self-improvement, Ethan. Everything.
Well, you've now changed this law from being quite bad in my eyes to being very, very valuable. It's good. It's a good law because I think everyone wants control in their life. I think that's kind of like what we're all craving at the end of the day is some sort of control in our lives. But when you start taking everything on board and start taking responsibility for everything on yourself, that gives you the most control that you can have. And by putting that responsibility on you, I mean, you're doing the reps, you're getting better every single time. You may become better than the person above you. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You may not be wanting to achieve that, just might naturally happen. If you're making a company $10 million out of the 11 million, of course they're going to depend on you. They need you there. Otherwise, they're going to lose so much revenue. So much revenue.
Yeah, if I might contribute there, using that example as well, it's not your fault that the rest of the company sucks. You know, like, I wouldn't, like, the company is depending on you. Part one, because you're so good, but part two, because everyone else in the company is nowhere near your level, right? And it's like you're a gift, and they're treating you like the gift that you are. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that's just, karma. That's just how the universe works, right? If you deserve all of that recognition, praise, everyone else is trash compared to you, then, like, you may as well take it, right? Like,
well, you don't need to destroy every building in town to become the biggest building. You
absolutely.
can just build the bigger building and just be that biggest building in town and allow everyone else to stay at that same level. It's not your fault that you're developing faster than them.
Yeah, man.
You're taking on that responsibility to help yourself to be better. And in the end, if they start to depend on you, that becomes more of a them problem than a you problem.
Yeah, like the central idea behind capitalism, like if you read, I would say it's in Wealth of Nations, but like if you just read sort of like your basic building block capitalist textbooks, the idea is not, I'm going to like make sure that people have no other options than me. The basic idea is I'm the best option, therefore give me money. And so, you don't, the point of this law, as you were just saying correctly, it's not to be manipulative and try to make yourself the only possible thing that people can latch onto, or else they'll die. The point is, you are just so much better than everyone else that everyone else is just a commonplace, menial, bad option. But I've got a question for you, if you don't mind me interrupting your stream of thought there.
Of course, I do have thoughts, but yes, please ask your question.
Oh no, please, after you. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, if people at home are struggling to kind of think about something that they may not necessarily realize that they're dependent on, James and I are the outliers here. We use Android phones, but we also use Apple products as well. I have a Mac, and you have a what do you have again?
Yeah, I've got Macs, iPads. I do have a iPhone 4 that I don't use for obvious reasons, but
great. Steve Jobs created a dependency around Apple's products. So if you have an iPhone right now, more than likely you also have AirPods as well, probably an iPad, maybe a Mac if you're a student or you do something else. You may have an Apple Watch as well. Or because
if you have a MacBook, you also need a Mac Studio for your house. So you need two computers from Apple. Yeah.
You are dependent on that ecosystem because of convenience. Because I love my Google phone, but if I had an Apple phone, it would be so much easier to transfer data straight to my Mac. But that's because they've created it like that. They've created it to make it just that little bit of inconvenience that you think that you need the other products to make it so much more convenient in your life. You're dependent on Apple products. You're dependent on so many things that you just kind of not really think about in your day-to-day life.
Certified.
Anyway, James, please ask your question.
So my question is taking in stride the idea that the job is not to manipulate, the job is to like just be better. If you're sort of thinking about this in terms of I have a job and I want to make people dependent on me, how would you sort of go about doing that? Like, what are the steps for you to go, okay, I'm Joe Blow, I work the register at Macca's, I work register at Woolworths, I do whatever. I want to go from that to being like the most valuable person in this branch, company, whatever. I guess, how do you go from step 1 to like step 10?
This is a very easy question because I did this when I was working at Woolworths. The barrier to entry, as we've talked about in our 1% episode, is so low. It is so low. If you just rock up to work with a smile on your face every single day, you're already above baseline than most people. So if I started from scratch at Woolworths again, I'd just do the exact same steps because in 6 months I was a supervisor. I rocked up to work on time. That's number one. Okay, you're already beating 50% of your coworkers because most people don't rock up on time. Do the job effectively well, just above. Do extra things while you're sitting around. Like, I know at Woolworths, sometimes it was really, really quiet. So just clean the register. Go ahead and stock the little candy bars that are on the registers sometimes as well. If you just do the little things over and over again and make your manager's life just easy so that they don't have to come over and tell you what to do and you just take that initiative, you're already going to be so dependent. Like, they're going to be so dependent on you that, oh, hey, Ethan, I got a shift this afternoon. Really, really love you if you could help close the store. Easy. Done. I think that's a really important thing as well with the whole just being better is taking initiative, doing the things that you don't necessarily need to do until they're asked, but just doing them anyway because you know it's a good thing to do. And the financial returns on that will just come naturally. Like, when I first started at Woolworths, this was during COVID pandemic. I was getting good hours and then slowly started to get worse because it slowed down a bit more. This was like August, September. But I had friends at school who also worked at Woolworths and they said, oh, Ethan, I'm getting like 10 hours a week. What are you getting? I said, oh, I've got double that. I've got 20 hours this week. Like, what? How are you getting so many hours? It's because I was a really, really good employee. I put in the effort to show that. And you can put this in regards to your business as well, which, James, leading to you then, you're the business owner here. You're Mr. CEO, Mr. Big Baller Shot Caller. In your professional life, how have you sort of done really, really well, taken a whole lot of responsibility and initiative to make other people, customers, other business owners depend on you?
I think one thing that as you were talking, I had a thought, which is a rare occasion. I know. I'm gonna create a sound effect.
Whoa, everyone, James had a thought and now he won't talk for 15 minutes straight. It's insane.
Yeah, so I had a legitimate thought. And the thought that I had is that when we're talking about like taking on the responsibility, going from like I work the registers to I'm getting all of the hours, talking about like I'm a business person, but I'm like right at the start, no one's dependent on me, to, I'm the big baller shot caller, Mr. CEO. You know what I'm saying? The way that I'm kind of thinking about that now, and since you referenced it, is like making people dependent on you. You can also just rephrase that as being the person that people call when they need the job done. Like, if you're the person that someone goes, crap, I need this today. They're like, and they're looking around and they're like, oh my gosh, no one is capable of doing this work. You want to be the person that they pick up the phone and go, hey, are you free? I need you. No one else is able to do this. You are the person who is like capable. You're the only person I know who is capable. You might not even be the only person, but if you are the top of mind person, the first person that everyone calls up, they're like, hey, please help me out here. That's kind of what we're talking about, right? It's being reliable. It's being top of mind. It's being good and like consistent, conscientious. It's being well prepared. It's being like just the best in general. Like, when I think of my business, let's talk about the music business. And we actually, new podcast, I've got to tell you about the new business I'm working on. But when we're talking about the music business, like, you want to be that first gig caller, right? Like someone, someone's coming in from interstate and they need a band and they say to, the piano player who they're bringing with them, oh, who do you know that's in Brisbane? And if you're not the first name out of that person's mouth, then that person is not dependent on you, right? Like, you're not the person. Someone else is the person. So you need to look at yourself, look at them and go, what do they have that I don't have? And you need to start doing that. If that thing is a network, you need to build your network. If that thing is like a nice suit, you need to start wearing a nice suit, right? And I think for me, a lot of that has just been part one, just doing more, being more top of mind. The more people that you play with, hang out with, the more that people are like, oh, I need someone to play bass for me. Oh, well, the first bass player I think of is James, right? Like, being top of mind, it's pretty helpful. It's pretty good. But the other part of that is maybe the first person that comes to mind isn't good enough. Like, maybe they think, oh, I'm going to get Joe Blow. Actually, you know what? This is a really important gig. It's someone's wedding. We're getting paid like hundreds of dollars each. I think I'd better get someone who's a little bit more professional than Joe Blow. And then you need to be top of mind when they think of professional bass players, right? And so you construct this value ladder and you just want to be top of mind at the bottom, top of mind in the middle, and top of mind at the top. But if you had to pick one, you would obviously pick, well, I want to be top of mind for the people who are going to pay me like 10 grand an hour, right? But if you can't be top of mind for those people, you'd rather be top of mind for people who are going to pay you 5 grand an hour, 2 grand an hour, 1 grand an hour, whatever. And we have the technology now, Ethan, that while you were talking earlier, you actually reminded me of a little video clip. So we're going to test this out, see if we can watch this clip and get some insights out of it.
Now, there's some key questions to ask here. Why would the marketplace pay someone only $5 an hour? Very simple answer. They're not very valuable to the marketplace. Now, we must underline to the marketplace. This person might be a very valuable brother, yes. Member of the family, valuable, yes. Valuable member of the church, of course. Valuable citizen of the country, yes. Valuable in the sight of God, no doubt. We're all of equal value in the sight of God. But if you're not very valuable to the marketplace, you don't get much money. You say, well, it shouldn't be that way. Well, then you got to start your own country. You know, this one's been in process for 200 years, and this is the best we've been able to come up with so far. But here's the key. You don't have to stay here. Now, there was a big debate in Congress last year that this $5 was not enough, should be 6, should be 6, should be 6. But we don't need legislation. 6 is already on this ladder. The next step up. You know, if you work for McDonald's, they'll pay you $5 an hour to take out the trash. If you whistle while you take out the trash, they'll pay you $6 an hour. So we don't need that legislation. You just need to take lessons on how to whistle.
Oops, that didn't get rid of the video. That got rid of the soundboard. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I had that video in my head while I was listening to you talk earlier. And like the idea of this value ladder, everyone starts at minimum wage and then you just work your way up from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you set yourself apart from all the other people who work for $5 an hour minimum wage? And he's like, you whistle while you take out the trash. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't need to legislate that I make $6 an hour. I just need to take whistling lessons. I love Jim Rohn. He's the OG. He's the GOAT. But he's so right. It's like, and then once you become the guy who takes out the trash and whistles while he does it, how do you stand out of that like smaller category? And you're like, well, you take out the trash and you arrive on time. You leave when the job's done, not when your hour's finished. And then it's like, wow, this guy's standing out. Let's bump him up to $7 an hour. And you just keep working your way up until you're top of mind at each of the levels. So that is definitely something that I need to work on, personally. I'm top of mind in like the maybe $100, $150 gigs, like, you know, in the area of like $40 to $50 an hour. I'm pretty top of mind. But like, I don't want to be making $40 or $50 an hour, especially, you know, from music. Like, if I'm making so much money elsewhere, I don't want to just be making that money from music. I want to make music the main thing so I can focus on it more. So I guess it's then, how do I become top of mind for that? But one part of that I want to get your opinion and ideas on is how to, like, I suppose, expand that dependence. So like, you might have one person who's like, yeah, that's my guy. If I need to find someone, I'm going to find Ethan Benstead. I guess, how would you, if you're already top of mind for one person, then you could be top of mind for multiple. How do you like expand sort of that influence and maybe dependence circle, if you like?
That's a really good question. It's a really, really good question. I mean, I guess the easiest way is kind of go back to Woolworths for a second there, for my time that I was there. Obviously, you know, different departments in the store, like front of store, fruit and veg, groceries, bakery, whatever, etc., etc. When I was really, really good at the front of the store, other managers started coming to me and saying, hey, can you help out with my department? Can you help out with my department, etc., etc., etc. So one way, I guess, is just be so good that other people talk about you. Like, just let that natural, organic communication just happen. Another way would probably just be, if you're a freelancer, if one person knows you're really good, get them to talk about you. But also, social media is another great way to bring in a lot of organic traffic. One thing that I've been doing a lot recently is posting on LinkedIn. I try and post once every single day. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way I want, unfortunately. But by doing that, I've actually not only been able to grow connections within Greater Brisbane area, I've also had quite a few people message me regarding job opportunities as well. I think that's a really important one, is that natural organic growth all over social media, because that's what we have at the moment today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just writing down some questions that I have based on that. But like, the first question that I have is like, how do you actually, like, what do you do? What changes for you to get those, like, I guess, referrals from friends? Like, I agree that a lot of it is just word of mouth, and you can use social media to amplify that word of mouth. But, like, I guess the question that I'm struggling with at the moment is, how do you sort of get that word of mouth to actually travel? Like, do you need to do something? How long does it take? Like, what are the expectations around, if I do this, this will happen. If I don't do this, that will happen?
I mean, there's a couple of different ways that you can go about it. So obviously that, like, you're asking how to expand that word of mouth. Is that the question?
Well, I think the question is, like, if you know that, like, word of mouth is going to get around, it's like, how long is that going to take? And then if you want it to get around faster because you're improving rather than slower because you're getting worse, like, what would you do to make it faster versus make it slower?
Probably network, but in person. So I know that when I was studying for music, I was going to 1, 2, 3 gigs a week. Number one, to support local musicians, but also to get my name out as well. And by doing that, I was able to join a few bands and get some paid gigs. And if I hadn't done that, those opportunities wouldn't have come around.
Enough. So,
Number one, because trombone players are very, very short in the Brisbane area. Number two, because of that fact, people I met, people I networked with, knew that I was a trombone player studying jazz music. So added them on Facebook, gave them my phone number, whatever. And from there, I just was able to get a whole bunch of opportunities that if I didn't go to those performances, I wouldn't have never gotten. Sure, my name may have popped up a couple of times by just other people talking about me, but by being in person and these people actually getting a visual image of myself, that helped out greatly.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, as you were saying that, I did think to myself, like, we're phrasing this whole learn to keep people dependent on you as take personal responsibility for everything. And part of that personal responsibility is you don't need to rely on other people to get your name out. You're going to just get your own name out and, take on all that responsibility yourself. Well,
I do have something I've been sitting on for the last 10 minutes, though.
Shoot, I'm sorry I distracted you from it.
No, that's okay. I'm going to go back to being an employee, because something that, if we're going to take now Law 11 is just taking responsibility and allowing yourself to grow so big that other people become dependent on you. The reversal for this then is don't forget Law 1, which is never outshine the master. It's really great if you propel yourself up to being so good that you just grow and grow. But if you outshine the person above you, it makes your job so much harder. And that's something I dealt with in my last job when I was working for insurance. Being me, coming from multiple leadership positions, I was able to just grow a very, very strong friendships with people that were in my group that came into the call center. A lot of people came to me for help because I just memorized things very, very well. I had a very, very good product knowledge. Problem was my manager felt very, very threatened by me because these people weren't going to her, which is what her job was. Now, by being naturally like this, I didn't really know how to stop. I had to fully dial back myself, and I hated that. So on your rise to being a better person, just don't outshine the master.
Yeah, well, my take on that is, I mentioned karma a lot in this episode, but I think fundamentally it's a easy to understand philosophy of, like, you get what's coming to you, right? So I think that the way that you I guess, reconcile the two laws is that you do absolutely everything and you take none of the credit. Right? You let the master take all the credit. They get to shine like a star, whatever. And you just get to maneuver in the darkness, as we referenced back in that episode. And then when they take the credit for your work, it's like you know that you have the power, right? The slave is borrower to the lender. Sorry, the borrower is slave to the lender.
There you go.
I'm getting a sound effect for that one. Here we go.
Stop it. Get some help.
So by doing that, you know, like the karmic balance of the universe, it's going to work out that they take credit for work that they did not do, cannot do. And you get to, number one, make them dependent on you, which is this law. Number two, you gain the skills involved from doing the work that they cannot do. And number three, if you don't like them taking credit for all of the work that you do, like you know that they're going to have this mad comeuppance when it's like, let's say you're working in a job, right? And the person above you can't do their job, so you do their job for them effectively. And you're like, man, I hate how they take all the credit for me doing their job for them. And then you leave this job because you're sick of it, right? You're like, I've been doing their job and my job for the last 3 years straight. I'm sick of it. And then you leave. You leave that job. And that person now has to do their job, which they haven't done for 3 years. They have to learn all of the skills associated with doing their job. And at the same time, like, you don't get to revel in it because you're not there, but it's like, you just know that as soon as you leave, they're going to, like, receive the karma for all of the work that they haven't been doing, that you've been doing, that they've been taking the credit for. And something about me just really likes that, you know? Like, I don't like to think of myself as being a vengeful person, but I do like this idea of, like, this cosmic, you know, fairness and, like, balance to the universe. It's like, if someone is doing the wrong thing and taking credit for things which they did not do and do not deserve, and then the universe comes crashing down on them and it just slams them, I love that idea. But because you've also done all of this extra work, as I mentioned, you get all of these extra skills. Your resume looks bigger and better because you're like, look, I was at this company and I did A, B, C, which was in my job description, as well as D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, which was in my superior's job description. Please give me this superior role at your company. And they're like, oh, yeah. He has, or he or she has done all of this work. It makes a lot of sense for them to now be in that role, which they were already doing at the last company. So that's my thought on. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what the question even was. I started ranting. I apologize.
Stop it. Get some help.
The question was about the reversal, which was law one, never outshine the master. So my thought is, don't outshine the master. Just outwork them, outperform them, outlearn them, and do their job for them as much as you possibly can. Because it only ends well for you. I think, like, I can't imagine someone where they're taking all the credit for work they're not doing, and then they decide, you know what, this person, give them the flick. I want to do all of the work that I haven't done for the last 3 years. But that's me thinking as an employee. But Ethan, let's just run it back to the business, right? Businessman, business plan. But not just businessman, business plan. We're talking businessman, business plan. Make more money at your job. Be happier. Get larger. Take on more financial responsibility. Take on more responsibility for your health, your happiness, your friends, your family, your loved ones. Let's talk about Self-Improvement Australia for a minute. So, Ethan, we've already spoken about what Self-Improvement Australia is. Mm-hmm. But is Self-Improvement Australia a free ride where you get to do absolutely nothing, and then nothing happens, but like you're just in the same place that you were before?
God, no.
God, no. Please explain.
With Self-Improvement Australia, which is the Skool community that James and I have created together to better your life, okay? We want you to take responsibility for your finances, your fulfillment, better. With all three of these, your future. But that's only if you take responsibility for it. You become so good, so good, that maybe you might even overtake James and myself. Probably won't happen. But if you strive for it, I reckon you could do it. But that's not it as well, because we understand that sometimes taking responsibility for your fitness, your finances, and your fulfillment can be hard. It can be challenging. You fall off the wagon sometimes, and that's okay. Which is why accountability partners are a very essential thing to becoming your best self, to improve yourself, to get yourself to a higher level, which James and I will be able to help you with by being inside of Self-Improvement Australia.
Inside of Self-Improvement Australia. Yeah, like if you listen to this episode, right? You're the listener. Wow. James and Ethan, they are so smart. They are so attractive. I've been subscribed to them on YouTube for at least the last 5 seconds. I've liked this video. This has been the most enjoyable podcast I've listened to in the last 42 minutes. And you think to yourself, you know, maybe I should do Self-Improvement Australia. Like, they've just talked about taking self-responsibility, right? About karma for the more responsibility you take on, the better your life, right? They've just talked about you want to, I guess, maximize the amount of work. You want to be top of mind for all good things in your life. And you want to be top of mind to the right people, right? Like, you don't want to be top of mind to the minimum wage people. You want to be top of mind to like the really successful people, the people who are rising and grinding. And then you look at your bank account and you say, I've got many monies in here. Like, I've got at least $30. Like, look at your bank account right now. You're like, oh, I've got enough money for $30. You know what? My light just died. That's awkward. I'm going to come nice and close to the camera for the rest of this sales presentation. So
no, James, exactly in my checking account is $33.84.
$33. Well, you know what you could go and do with that $33.81, Ethan?
84. Thank you.
84. My apologies. You can take that. You can go, all right, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to be the best around. And then you go onto the Self-Improvement Australia School, right? You type into your browser, skool.com. You type in the search bar, Self-Improvement Australia, right? And then you join. Now, when you join, you are going to be top of mind for us because we are a small community right now, right? Like, you are going to be, outside of me and Ethan, the number one person that people think of when they think people who got into Self-Improvement Australia early. Now, by the time that you're watching this, that could be less true. But then once you're in that community, you need to network. You need to use the social media aspects of it, right? You're going to level up. There are levels in the community, and you're just going to get better and better, make more and more money, get bigger, healthier, become top of mind for this as a person that not only makes great life decisions, but they get stuff done. They take a lot of responsibility, and then karma is going to come in, and it's going to make you this phenomenal person. And remind me how much money was in your checking account right now, Ethan?
A whole $33.
$33. Okay. So if I heard someone say, I've got $33 to my name, what should I do with it? You know what I would say to that person?
Please tell me.
I would say you should spend all $33 on making more money. Now, Ethan, this is a rhetorical question, but what is the very first channel when you get onto Self-Improvement Australia? So you've got the free chat area, and then what is the very first channel?
I don't know, James. You tell me. What is the very...
Finances! Getting you rich!
Oh my God, finances. Of course.
Right? We're talking about getting you money. I don't... And then, okay, let's pretend, right? Let's pretend you're a big rich boy like me. I'm going to pull up my bank account because I have no idea how much money's in there right now. All right, let's say that you've got all $569. Nice. And you're like, that's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money, but that's just the money that's like on my card right now. What am I going to do with that money? Well, I could buy baked beans. That'd be kind of cool for the next like 30 seconds. $500. Gosh, what if with that $500, I spent a year and a half with every person in Australia on self-improvement, and I got access to a bunch of courses, personalized Q&As, and access to all of these meetups with the other people who are getting richer, happier, better romantic life, better family life, better finances. Or I could buy those baked beans. I don't know, man. What do you think I should do, Ethan?
I would say be part of the 1% and join Self-Improvement Australia.
Great success.
Absolutely. Well, I just had a thought, Ethan. You know how inflation has been rampant? There's been inflation everywhere. You can't buy anything for less than hang on. You can't buy anything with free shipping for less than $50. But remind me, how much do we actually charge for Self-Improvement Australia for 1 month, 30 days?
$30.
So you're telling me that even with all of this massive inflation that's been going on, a Chupa Chup costs about the same as $1 inside of our amazing, ridiculously valuable school community. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
James, I'm going to agree with you there. 100% agree with you there. Because I'm going to take it one little bit better. Okay. Inflation is so rampant at the moment, right? That for a zinger burger, okay?
A zinger
For a
burger.
delicious zinger burger, okay? In a box meal. I actually don't know how much it is.
I'm here to tell you, Ethan, that if you go to KFC and you go up to the counter and you say, "Hi, I would like one burger feast, please." And then they say, "Okay, is there anything else you want with that?" And you say, "I would like a 10% discount." And they say, "Oh, yeah, sure, 10% off." It is still more expensive. Like 1 day's worth of food is still more expensive than 1 month's worth of this like amazing educational community. I don't know how much an individual burger is, but I'm here to tell you that if you get a burger feast with 4 zinger burgers, which is, I'm going to be honest, that's a great investment, but that lasts for like a day, tops.
But then also you need to remember, not only, yes, it's delicious, okay? Now I'm probably going to get KFC after this now because it's so good. However, you need to remember the amount of calories that is in those burgers. The aftermath of being on the toilet the next day and how terrible it's going to be. And that's 2 days then that you've wasted. Not only have you wasted $30 on food that is not going to be good for you, That's day one. But you've wasted day two by being on the toilet the entire day. Or for just $1 a day, you can buy multiple Zinger Burger feasts and be part of a community that will make you better.
Look, if you sincerely cannot afford $30, leave a comment and we'll figure something out. But if you look at your bank account and you go, oh, you know, I've got a few $1,000s in savings, but I don't want to touch that. You're an idiot, okay? And you know what you should do?
Stop it. Get some help.
Ethan, this imaginary listener who hasn't gone onto Skool.com yet and hasn't purchased right this second, they're making me absolutely furious. And so I think that we should leave Law 11 there. All right? If someone can't learn to keep people dependent on them, if they can't take personal responsibility for all the things happening in their life, if they can't figure out how to get that security and freedom that they need from having other people dependent on them, and they're not willing to improve their lives, I think that they should just like this video and leave a comment about how I don't want to improve my life. I like my life being mediocre. And then I think they should just watch the next video so we can change their mindset. Right? Change their mindset, change their life on the next video. What do you think, Ethan?
I would say for that person, please do comment, do subscribe, and do like. But if you have this feeling, this ember that's slowly dying inside of you, and you want to ignite that flame with some gasoline, join Skool, join Self-Improvement Australia. James and I will meet you in there. We will go through a step-by-step process to make you the best version of yourself. And then once you've achieved that best version of yourself, continue going higher. Build you the biggest building in the city so that no one can take you down.
The world is your oyster, friend. We will see you in Skool.